Good afternoon. Welcome, members and guests, to the Rotary Club of York, the 26th largest Rotary Club in the world, and a club dedicated to imagining and living out the Rotary mission of service above self. I'm Glenn Miller, the club president. Our opening song today, God Bless America, will be led by Deb Harrison. Following the Pledge of Allegiance, our invocation will be led by Eric Chase, and our visitors will be introduced by Glenn Smith. Please take a moment to silence your electronic devices.
Please join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When Glenn started, I thought it was the voice of God speaking to us. So would you prepare yourself in the way you're most accustomed for prayer? Let us go in prayer. In a world where conflict often appears to be a way of life anymore, we give thanks that as Rotarians, we can reach across so many borders to offer comfort, counsel, and service to those in need, offering the olive branch of peace. As I lift our voices in prayer today, we give thanks that we have the ability to freely offer our time, our talents, our treasures to serve our neighbors in conflict and in need. We give gratitude for our speaker, Sara Parrish, and her organization, CampusDoor, that they provide services to financial institutions and schools through financial technology and processing private student loans and assist individuals to access educational opportunities. In one accord, we join in fellowship and ask that this food nourish us, and we give thanks for the hands that have prepared and served it to us. And we ask for that help to be better, to fulfill our commitment of service above self and Rotary. For these things we pray today. Amen.
All right, good afternoon. I am introducer Glenn, and I have the honor of introducing our guest today. When I call your name, please stand and please remain standing until President Glenn welcomes you to the club. Julie Kamasi, guest of our speaker. Billy Davis, guest of our speaker. Raven Dixon, guest of Commissioner Muldrow. Daniela Feisritzer, guest of Student Education Committee. Ileana Feisritzer, guest of Student Education Committee. Mike Feisritzer, guest of Student Education Committee. Dan Lentz, guest of Commissioner Muldrow. Daisy Miller, guest of Student Education Committee. Christy Miller, guest of the Student Education Committee. And Robert Miller, also guest of Student Education Committee. Greta Miller, guest of Michael Bloom. Tavon Parker, guest of Jules Tolbert. Annie Reynolds, guest of our speaker. Ryan Service Monzo, guest of past President Dye. Aaron Sirocco, guest of Melissa Rosario. Aaron Titter, guest of President Glenn. Debbie Wagner, guest of Student Education Committee. Diaz Woodward, guest of Commissioner Muldrow, and Michael Allen, guest of Bill Anstein.
Friends, we are delighted to welcome you to be with us today. We trust that you will enjoy the day's program, and I hope that you will return not only as a visitor again, but consider joining our ranks as members. Members, please help us to welcome our guests today. Be seated. By the way, Glenn, not the voice of God, just his humble servant. Few announcements for the good of the order today. The Rotary Club Board will meet tomorrow, July 14th at 8 a.m. via Zoom. As you came in today, you hopefully noticed on the table downstairs a box with more of those now famous green plastic bags. That box will be there every Wednesday routinely now. And on the second Wednesday of every month, beginning August the 10th, your filled bags with bags will be collected. So we thank Al Sykes for that announcement today and for that terrific ministry, I'll call it, that is going on. Thanks to each of you who have brought guests to the club in June and July. It is my hope that you will continue to round up more free agents to build our team for the remaining meetings in July especially. Remember that each time that you bring a guest to the meeting, you will be entered into a drawing for a pair of tickets to your choice of a Philadelphia Eagles home game, a Baltimore Ravens home game, or a Penn State home game. Tickets have been generously donated by Fox 43, and we are grateful for that. We continue to need volunteers to help with our Get Hooked on Fishing program for our city youth this summer at Kiwanis Lake. I am grateful that you have apparently, some of you, heeded the call in the past few weeks, and we have had an increased number of volunteers. We could still use more. We have lots of kids signed up, and we could use a few more Rotarians to make sure that that is a terrific experience for them. No fishing experience necessary. You just need to be a human who cares about kids. And I think that includes everybody in the room. If you are interested and able to assist, please contact Ashley Etzweiler if you are interested. Finally, in the announcements portion, past club president and current United Way president, Ann Druck, asks for your assistance in completing the United Way of York County Community Survey. Some of you may have received this already by email. Everyone in the room today has a flyer at your table that invites you to be a part of this, and would be very grateful for our participation, which will enable the United Way to better determine how best to serve our community in the days and years ahead. So thank you for that. And now our Executive Director, Lynn, has an update regarding our committee service for this upcoming year. Lynn.
Thank you, President Glenn. So last week, we sent you an email asking that you each complete a form, letting us know what committees you'd like to serve on this year. How many of you have done that? Awesome. That was easy, right? Go in, click, 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 boom, done, right? So today we have about 89 people who've filled out that survey, but that's only about a third of our club. So we're wondering where the rest of you are. And here's what I want to let you know. We want your participation on committees for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is how we do a lot of the work of the club. You have a lot of choice from your committees. You can join a committee that helps to serve the club meetings, like invocation that you saw today, meeting services, and program. You also have the opportunity to join a club that helps make the club better. That could be membership. It could be IDEA. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's also clubs that help us make the community better. So for example, Preserve Planet Earth, like we're doing today with Al's idea with the bags, and also literacy and our Hooked on Fishing program. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And I know that you're all thinking, well, you know, Lynn, I'm really involved in the community. Like I'm on a board and I have my kids I have to drive around and I volunteer at church. So I'm really busy. So look around this room. Is anybody in this room not busy? right? This is why you're all here. You're all leaders in the community. Everybody's busy. So why should you find time in your busy schedule to serve on a Rotary committee? Couple reasons, right? First of all, I remember Jody Keller telling me that she made some of her best friends in the world by working side by side with Rotary activities on a committee level. So you can make new friends, which is always good. This is how you can live out the service above self motto and what we're all about. So think about that really seriously. You can learn new skills, new opportunities. You can mentor somebody. This is your chance to give back. So I will tell you that while you were here today, we sent you another email. And that email said, have you signed up for your committees yet? And if you haven't signed up for your committees yet, I'm urging you to do so. How many people in here signed up for something new this year or tried a new committee? That's awesome. So even if you've been on a committee for a long time, there's lots of new opportunities. Maybe you're ready to stretch your wings in a new way. So I urge you to take that opportunity seriously. We'd like you to respond by Friday because we'd like to slot our committees. If you have any questions about the work of a committee, you could call their chair or you can call me and let me know. But I hope to see more of you at some of our committee meetings this year. Thank you.
Very well put. This is how we go from being members of Rotary to being Rotarians. So please take all of that to heart. I am delighted at this time to welcome Rotarian and York City Police Chief Michael Mudrow to give us an update on the exciting plans for the Community Center for Youth in the city. As you all know, or I hope you know, we designated this project to be the recipient of our funds that we raised recently in Give Local York. And we will be adding to those funds in a big way in September, as this project is also now the designated recipient of our Love for Community fundraiser. So Michael is here with two members of his team and will give us an update on that project.
All right. Good afternoon, Rotarians. I'm still overwhelmed when I get the opportunity to say that as a kid from the 600 block of West Locust Street. After what we just dealt with, again, having had young people involved in that most recent shooting that I actually had in school, I find myself even more committed now to what we're looking to do here, and excited about being here today with you all as partners, as things are absolutely progressing nicely. And we are pumped to be able to report that we now have a home, an official home at 301 East Philadelphia Street, the Sylvia Newcomb Center. So we're proud to be able to report that. And additionally, now that the vision is clear and things are lining up, we're even more convinced that the road we're heading down, that attacking the problem at its root and working towards changing the trajectory of our youth is truly going to be how we change or improve this community. With that said, I'd like to concede my remaining time, which is rare for me, as I proudly introduce three amazing young people who are very near and dear to me. First, I just want to make sure I take an opportunity to introduce Mr. Diaz Woodard, recreational specialist and urban networking guru, who will officially be serving as the program director once the rec center opens. Additionally, we have Miss Raven Dixon, a recent graduate from York High, who's now attending York College through the YCOS program. This amazing young woman that she is evidence of what York City kids can do if given an opportunity. And she will be here to talk to you a little bit about what this center will mean to young people of this community. And last but not least, closing us out, is Lieutenant Dan Lentz, who will give you a short project update as the project manager helping me get the ball across the line. So without further ado, Miss Raven Dixon.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Raven Dixon. And as I start, growing up, I was raised with the mentality that getting my education is one of the most crucial aspects of attaining a good life. It takes a village to raise a child, and for me, my village is York, Pennsylvania. Because today, when I look into my community, I'm able to see that not every house is built to be a home. And however, one thing that all homes do have in common is having a good foundation. And for me in York, Pennsylvania, our foundation is our children. The kids, the younger generation, they're the ones who will be taking care of both you and me when we are old, sick, and wounded. That's why ideas like this, to have a safe haven, are important because they ensure that there is somewhere for our children and our youth to go, somewhere that they can learn and somewhere that they can be something great. Places like these are what keeps that feeling of youth ignited. And within my community, there is so much unused potential within, and it's not until the proper seeds are planted and watered that we will change and see something blossom and flourish into something truly beautiful. As I wrap things up, let me leave you with this. We, the youth, are more than a number, a label, or a negative stereotype. Our worth and our value is undeniable, and it deserves the chance to prosper in every view of life. Thank you.
I don't know about you guys, but that touched my heart, Raven. So appreciate that. I'll keep it real short. Like the commissioner said, we have a home, so we know where we're going to be going. The next step is we've been working with Troy Bankert and Matt Falvey at Warehouse on designs. And we actually just met yesterday. We did a walkthrough of the facility. And so we're just kind of progressing through that. I don't want to set a deadline on when this is going to be done because it's just too important not to rush. And we want to take our time and do it right. So with that, thank you.
So I don't know if, and I don't want to get myself in trouble. I don't know if we have any time for any questions, but if not, that's okay. I'll take my seat. But okay, I have time for 2 questions. If anybody has any questions before we take our seat. If not, we are again super excited as we continue to flush this out, and the meeting that we had with Matt and his team yesterday and with Diaz Woodard and all the connections that he's already made. We're excited that we're going to have partnerships with Cal Weary for the theater component, that we have Miss Rossum Dance will be a part of the programming. We will have culinary offerings. We're now presently working on a partnership with Wellspan for youth job training to be a component inside of the community center. In addition to, as I said early on when I first met with you, covering all the bases from that Maslow's level, where we're going to be able to, kids can come and actually wash their clothes and get a warm meal and have opportunities. And then with Matt and his team, with what they're going to look to do for us as we copy what they did at Martin Library with the sound booth and the sound stage and the other pieces that they put in there for youth. We're just excited to get this thing set up, get it off the ground, and as Raven said, be a haven for our kids, a place for them to go and a point for opportunity. So thank you again for taking this journey with us and indulging me and becoming our partners. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I was informed while they were speaking that Raven was one of our past students of the month at Rotary and is now at York College as a Wyckoff student. Friends, this is what it looks like when we imagine great things and then put effort into making those great things happen. So thank you all again so much for being here. And we are really excited to be a partner with you in what's being accomplished in this center. So thank you very much. One of the many ways that this club has enacted service above self and making great things happen is through our scholarships, the scholarship assistance. And so Diane Marino is here today to tell us about recent recipients of our scholarship funds. Diane.
Oh, it's great to be back here. It's been over a year since I have taken the podium. It's been a different year. As some of you may know, we, along with the leadership of the CEF board, made a very courageous decision this year to outsource our scholarship awards. We sent it up to the Foundation for Enhancing Communities, and I can tell you without a doubt, it was one of our best decisions. We received over 113 applications this year, which is phenomenal. Therefore, that's why you didn't see me up here like you did last year, threatening you, saying, if we don't get more, I'm going to have Jody Keller come up here and tell one of her jokes. Or threatening you by telling you that Al Sykes was going to take the podium for the next half hour. So I do want to recognize, though, the hard work of the committee this year, their dedication and their commitment to these students. I can tell you this committee, it is an honor to chair. These students are amazing. Raven, you also brought me to tears. I will agree with Lieutenant Lentz. Michael, well done. She is amazing. Congratulations, Raven. Okay, so let's kick this off. First, I'm going to introduce you to Debbie Wagner. Debbie, do you want to come on up? Her son, who is not here, however, he is here virtually. Thank you for bringing that picture. Luke is currently at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. He is at boot camp for the PA Army National Guard until November. He will be starting Messiah University in January. He is studying music performance, and he is the recipient of Art Cayley Music Scholarship in the amount of $2,000. So congratulations to Luke. Thank you, Debbie. And next is Daisy Miller. Come on up, Daisy. Daisy is a 2019 graduate of West York High School and is entering into her senior year at York College in the nursing program. She is receiving the Carol Wagman Nursing Scholarship in the amount of $2,000. Carol, thank you for your generous gift to the Rotary Club's legacy program. We can't do these without you. So thank you and congratulations to Debbie. Daisy. And congratulations to her parents who are sitting here. I want to remember names right now. I know it is Rob and Christy. Oh, yay, I did it. Okay. And last but not least, I am actually thrilled to welcome back Daniel Feistritzer. Did I do it right? Yes. Okay, great. And her parents are also here. Ileana, unfortunately, I think her husband stepped out. Mike, got that right too. Great. Daniela has been here before. She is the recipient of the Carrie Bush Scholarship. She is a 2020 graduate of Central York High School. She's entering her junior year at Columbia University. Biochemistry was not intimidating enough for this young lady, so she has decided to now have a dual major of environmental biology and pre-law. Columbia, like, God, you know, these kids. Okay. So anyways, congratulations, Daniela. If you wouldn't mind saying a few words about how your first 2 years went and what this scholarship means to you.
Thank you. As Diane said, I'm studying environmental biology and pre-law. Pretty busy schedule, if you can imagine. I'm hoping to study environmental law after I graduate. And these past 2 years at Columbia have been a dream. And I'm so thankful to Rotary for giving me the opportunity to pursue this. Columbia just has such incredible opportunities. Next spring, for example, I'm hoping to study abroad in Kenya as part of our sustainability and environmental justice program. And without Rotary, I don't know, I'm just very grateful for the opportunity that you guys have given me to pursue things like this. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniela. Congratulations to the three of you. Well, Debbie, congratulations to your son. You will be meeting our next scholarship winners over the next 3 weeks. Thank you to everyone in this room who has donated so generously to our programs and our scholarships. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Diane, and thanks to the committee, and thanks again for the wisdom of embracing that decision. What an amazing thing to have had that many applicants for the largesse of this club. That's just terrific. This is just extraordinarily good stuff. So thank you very much. And we are clearly in good shape in the world if these are our future leaders that we are helping to develop through these scholarship efforts. So thank you. It is now my pleasure to welcome our fellow Rotarian and my friend Kevin Schreiber to the podium to introduce today's speaker. Kevin.
All right, who was slow to clap there? Is that Sean Kenny who started it? Thank you. My ego. No. How's everyone doing today? Afternoon, Rotarians. I have the very fun task of introducing our speaker today, Miss Sara Parrish, who will join me here momentarily. CampusDoor is the new to York financial technology company, and this is certainly a very timely presentation. I know she'll be talking a little bit about student lending and all of the higher education, so it's great to have some of our students with us today. Now, Rotarians pride themselves on being rather informed populace. So you are very well connected to the community. So hopefully everyone is by now heard the news back in January of this year when it was announced that CampusDoor would relocate their corporate headquarters from Carlisle to downtown York, bringing with them over 100 full-time employees. That also increases by about 20 to 30% during their peak summer months. And again, most are very, very informed, so you're probably aware that the location that they selected, right in right field of People's Bank Park, was a rather high-profile redevelopment building that has also attained some high-profile ongoing news. But having said that, fortunately, there will probably be at some point in time a VH1 behind the music on all that has occurred with respect to that property, but the ownership of that real estate, that building, was resolved when it was sold. And that really enabled CampusDoor to make a decision to execute a multi-year lease. So while there's still entanglements, and I'm sure they will continue to play out and will probably play out in the front page news or page 6 of YDR, we now have a new financial technology company which has relocated to downtown York from Carlisle, which is awesome. So we'll hear a little bit more from Sara momentarily. She was among the leadership team that made and guided that decision-making process and spent the better part of about 14 months working through assessment and evaluations of multiple different sites, multiple different metropolitan markets, and ultimately opting for downtown York. The reasons for that relocation and the selection of downtown, I will defer to Sara to share more of, but I am certainly contributing factors were clearly that York is just the better of all of the other locations, and that the exceptionally talented economic development team over at the York County Economic Alliance, some of whom are marginally attractive, did a phenomenal job. But joking aside, I can attest that over the course of many, many months, there were multiple site deliberations, but it really was the openness of this community and the welcoming dialogue and collaboration with partners in higher education, such as York College or Penn State York. And incidentally, CampusDoor has already hired several York College students and alums. You're next over there, so we'll make sure you get your resume to them on the way out. And when CampusDoor made their announcement that they were coming to York, they did so by offering a significant contribution to 3 organizations: the United Way of York County in honor of its 100th centennial year, the York County Hispanic Coalition, and the YCOS program, because higher education is really core essential to the work that CampusDoor is doing. So we are just delighted to welcome CampusDoor to our civic and corporate community and to welcome Sara Parrish here to Rotary today. Sara was named president of CampusDoor in April of this year. She is a lifelong resident of Central Pennsylvania. She's a current resident of Fairview Township in Northern York County, and will be settling on a new property this Friday, also in Fairview Township. So she's just moving around the corner. She has built both a family and a career as a financial service executive while staying close to her roots. Prior to joining CampusDoor in 2016, Sara worked in various operational and portfolio management roles at Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, or FIA. Her responsibilities included operations management within the American Education Services, or AES, and Fed Loan, servicing structures and relationship management for more than $35 billion in commercial portfolios. And before starting in the student relationship management and loan industry more than 12 years ago, Sara worked in engineering and business development for government servicing contractor. Sara holds a master's from Duquesne and a bachelor's from Ursinus College. And just in some very heavy hitting questions, which I'm sure Rotarians will throw at her after her presentation, I did ask her earlier, her favorite cocktail is bourbon neat. Her favorite guilty pleasure dessert is she's not met one she doesn't like. And she's currently binge watching Dairy Girls, which I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm told it's hilarious. Sara and her team are an absolute delight. Several of them are here with her today. It has been great introducing her to the greater York community. I'd encourage everyone to engage with CampusDoor, engage with Sara, and introduce yourselves to these new to York employees, and welcome this phenomenal business leader with me today, Sara Parrish.
Thank you so much for that incredibly generous introduction. And thank you for the warm welcome here today, which is exactly like all of the other warm welcomes that we've received since we've made our way to York, made our way home to York, we should say. All right, so today I am excited to take you through some information about CampusDoor and what we do, well, this is crazy time of the year, which we'll get into in a minute, but what we do. And then I thought I'd spend a couple minutes just talking about kind of the state of the industry of student lending, because it's really in the news right now with all of the federal loans in forbearance and some significant talk about forgiveness. Thought maybe we'd spend a couple minutes diving into that. My team and I are student loan nerds, education finance enthusiasts. If you have any questions, I absolutely welcome you to ask us. I know many of you are probably holders of student loans, co-signers of student loans, and maybe some have some questions about education finance generally because of family members that are getting ready to go to school. Don't hesitate to use us as experts. Okay, so CampusDoor. Right now we have 139 employees. That's like literally as of today. At this time of the year, we get very busy and we grow by about 30 people. That's because it's peak lending season. So as you might expect, students are going back to school, they need loans, and we're there to kind of help make those connections and help them get those loans. About 8 of those 30 are York College students, which is very exciting for us and one of the primary reasons that we wanted to be in this area. So they've been wonderful. Julie manages that team, and I think we've just had an incredible experience with those students. Hopefully we'll get even more next year. We had a career fair kind of earlier in the summer as we were starting to staff up, and it was very well attended, and we've added a number of local employees, some of whom actually go into the office every day, which is kind of a rarity right now across industries. So we're really excited about our employee base, our new employees that are from the area, and then also, you know, we have a number of employees that work remote from the Carlisle area and really nationwide at this point. Our clients are banks, credit unions, fintechs, schools that have institutional loan programs. And now we are at about 360 clients. We're one of the bigger brands that you've probably never heard of because we're white labeled and we're really behind the curtain. So we process student loans for banks like PNC, credit unions like PenFed, some very, very large financial institutions. And we're up to about 1,400 loan programs. So across those institutions, many of them have multiple loan programs. So we are doing a lot of volume, about $3 billion of volume a year in loans. And as of right now, those are primarily student loans, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. A quick history of CampusDoor for those of you who aren't so familiar with us. We were founded back in 1995, which makes us the oldest of the organizations that do what we do. Actually, our online application in the late 90s was one of the first online student loan applications. Back in the 90s, we were one-to-one. So we were the captive student loan processor for KeyBank back in those days. We were eventually acquired by Lehman Brothers. And at that time, kind of changed our culture to processing our own paper. We were actually processing student loans that were held on the balance sheet by Lehman at the time. Of course, we all know what happened there. And as a wholly owned kind of entity of Lehman, we were caught up in all of that fun that none of us will ever forget. But almost immediately, our founder bought the assets out of bankruptcy, got the band back together, and we didn't really miss a beat. In fact, I think they didn't realize that that Lehman might not have realized that they continued to pay some of us accidentally throughout. So some of us never really left. So we got the band back together and decided to reinvent ourselves as white labeled. So that's when we really made that change to being, instead of one-to-one like we were in the 90s, one-to-many. So that's when we decided that we would compete for some really big bank business, and that we would, instead of originating only our own paper that we held on balance sheet, that we would not do that anymore. We would get out there and we would white label. If anybody's built software before, you know that white labeling is way more complicated than one-to-one. So we were really in for an adventure, but we did it. And today, you know, we're white labeled for those 360 banks and credit unions, which makes me feel exhausted even just saying it. The team does a phenomenal job of managing all of it. In 2007, we were acquired by Incenter. Incenter is a Blackstone portfolio company. So we got to then navigate the exciting world of private equity, which has been quite an education, very exciting, access to some phenomenal people, lots of big brains in the room there. It's been incredible for us. They're great partners. And then most recently, probably the most exciting event of our history, we have moved to York. So that happened officially earlier this year, unofficially a little later last year. And that's been really great for us. Right now, we are on the 5th iteration of our proprietary software. We call it T5 or TSV, Tuition Source Version 5. We don't ever plan for there to be a 6. We've engineered it so that it's modular and we can kind of swap things out as technology changes, but we should not need a beginning to end redesign ever again. A little bit about our technology and what it does. So we are completely white labeled. So, you know, when you go to PNC, you're not going to see our brand really associated with that anywhere other than a few small places where we have to disclose it. Our development is agile. So lots of you know that. I won't go into detail about what that means, but it does result in monthly software releases. So we have 50 or 60 pieces of code, well, not just pieces of code, but tickets, like items that are going into production every single month. As a result of that, we have a very large technology team of about 30 people, developers, BAs, QA testers. So a very heavy technical staff that are running 2 agile teams. They named themselves, fun fact, they are Team Bazinga and Scrambled Eggs, which I think might be the cutest thing I've ever heard. So our teams, they're pushing code every single month. We have some clients now who are using our software more in a SaaS way, which has been really interesting. For a long time, we built it, ran it ourselves, and it was fine. It's amazing how much you learn about the deficiencies in your software when you invite strangers to come in and use it. So I would say in the past 18 months, we have just made rapid progress toward an absolutely incredible software. It's always been solid. It's always been great, but now it's actually maybe a little bit more user-friendly. I don't know. You'd have to ask them for the real story. And then our software is 100% mobile responsive, device responsive. You can go beginning to end on your cell phone, and every year more and more applicants go beginning to end on their cell phone. There was a time where you could say that, you know, co-signers like to use their desktops. There's really 2 major demographics in student loans: the students and their parents who are co-signing their loans. Lots of you have probably done that. And so there was a time up until a couple of years ago where you could reliably say that the students want to use their phones, but mom and dad want to sit down at a computer. And that has really changed in the last few lending seasons. Now we're seeing that the parents absolutely want to use their phones too. Nobody wants to sit down at a computer anymore. So that's changed some of our design and our methodologies. Our current product suite, so the loans that we're originating today, are closed-end in-school loans. So that's what you would expect when you're a student, you're in school, you're applying once or twice a year, and you're getting a loan that has a disbursement or 2, and it goes to your school, and it's pretty traditional. We're also originating refinance loans. Now, that used to be a massive part of our business. We originated refinance loans for one of our former clients named a stadium after themselves. So some very large student loan refinance lenders used our technology. Not all of them do anymore. Some of them have built it out themselves. But because that federal portfolio is in forbearance right now, there's not a ton of refinance volume out there. And then we also originate international programs. We list those a little separately because they are they have some uniqueness and they're kind of their own product. We also have educational line of credit, which is an incredible product where you apply once and you have disaster only underwriting every year, but you come back in and take a draw, just like a HELOC, anytime that you need funding. So that's another one of our major products. I won't go into too much detail here, but as you might expect, audit is huge in our space. Audit, regulatory audits, so the CFPB coming in and popping the hood to make sure things look good. Banks doing their own audits. So of course, all of our technology has to have a very heavy focus on compliance. Not just are we doing it right, but how easy is it for auditors to get in and look when they need to? So we've had to design it with that in mind. One of our biggest benefits, one of the things that I find myself talking about a lot with prospective clients is the ability to make changes without needing code. So that's really kind of a big concept right now out there in technology generally. It's just how often do you actually need to make coding changes? And for us, we need to make coding changes for very, very little. Almost everything can be handled with configuration. So you're going into the system, you're making your changes, you're publishing those changes after you go through a very robust change management process, of course. But our developers don't like us to bother them very much. I think we can all attest to that. So we've really designed it so that the business can do most everything, and we can ask the developers to focus on the big stuff, not the little stuff. So this is generally how we kind of position ourselves to clients. We are really, really compliant. We have survived, and you kind of almost have to say survived because you can't describe it any other way. A number of very intensive audits with federal regulators, state AGs, a number of different regulatory bodies. We are always willing to work with our clients to adapt our system as needed. It's funny, I mean, across those 1,400 loan programs, you would think that we've seen it all and that nobody could come up with something new, and that for whatever need there is, we have a solution already. But every single time we onboard a client, they come up with something new. So the ability to move quickly and to adapt has really differentiated us. And finally, we're in the cloud. This is new for us, actually. In part of our move to York, we decided to, rather than move our entire data center with us, to actually pivot to the cloud. So we don't have a server room anymore. We use AWS, which has been massive and is a differentiator for us, because in our space, that's not as commonplace as you might think it is at this point. So that's been a really big deal for us. Not that we couldn't have a data center at our building, we could, but we don't have to now because we've decided to pivot to AWS, and it's worked out really well. Just a few other things that are a little unique about CampusDoor in our space anyway. We don't really market ourselves very heavily. We're out there. We have kind of a modest business development team, but most of our clients find us and not the other way around. That's a luxury today. We know it, and we take it seriously, and we protect our brand. But we don't introduce any incremental reputational risk because we kind of keep a low profile out there in the space. And then our really broad client base, of course, kind of protects us. We don't have a lot of concentration risk, which makes us a pretty intriguing partner for lots of banks and credit unions. So that's CampusDoor, but it might be a little more fun to talk a bit about student loans generally, what we're seeing in the space and what might come next, because that's what everybody wants to know. I wish I knew, but I can definitely make some educated guesses. And if I'm wrong, and you can absolutely let me know a couple months from now. Okay, so student loans. There are two primary types of student loans. And if you look at that pie chart kind of in the bottom corner there, we play in the private space. A lot of the student loans and the issues that you hear about are about that $1.75 trillion of student loans that are made by the federal government, held by the federal government, guaranteed by the federal government, and currently not being collected on by the federal government. So we play in the private space. There are really only two other organizations that do anything even close to what we do. So it's a small space. There's still plenty of room for us, though. You'll see that, in paying for college, there's a massive gap. What we focus on is the gap. The gap is what's left in between the sticker price, your scholarships, federal loans that it's certainly beneficial to take in most cases, and then what's left. So there's a large gap for most students. I mean, the average gap is between $130,000 over 4 years and $21,000 over 4 years. And that's really average. That's based on, I'll just call out that the average is there for 4 years, and for 4-year private and public. Those are Pennsylvania specific numbers. Pennsylvania schools do trend a little bit more expensive than the national averages, but not by a ton. So that gap is massive for almost every single student. And that's really where we come into play. So private student loans can take a few different forms, and fortunately, we do originate all of them for banks and credit unions. Private loans continue to be an intriguing value proposition for credit-worthy individuals. Because the rates can be lower in a lot of cases than the federal loans because they are underwritten. Federal loans, the ones that are lent by the federal government and held by the federal government, have in some cases some amount of underwriting, but in most cases very little underwriting. Anybody can get them. They don't need to be co-signed typically. And they're really kind of out there for everybody. That's why the rates are higher, and that's why the repayment tends to be a challenge, and the fact that the default rates tend to be very high. Private loans can have much lower rates because they are being underwritten and they almost always have a cosigner. The underwriting on private loans is usually FICO, which is, it's kind of getting to the point where other asset classes are starting to move away from FICO. Student is still very, very traditional. FICO and debt to income tend to be the things that drive pricing on private loans. Private loans also have no origination fees. Fun fact, a lot of federal loans do have origination fees up to 4.5%. So if you're credit worthy, private loans are still a really good value proposition. Private loans also have flexible repayment options. So often you'll see that lenders will offer a fully deferred and interest only, maybe a partial payment, and then a full principal and interest repayment schedule. And you'll get interest rate breaks if you make any payments at all. So that's not something that happens with the federal portfolio. Those are all fully deferred. Once you graduate, you have grace, and then you go into repayment and you can select a repayment schedule, but there's no breaks for making payments while you're in school. And then there's also much more flexible repayment terms on the private side. So, refi can go up to 30 years in some cases. In school can go to 25. So you have a lot of options. And that's why private loans still exist and why we feel pretty strongly that they will always exist, because for some people, they're just a lot better. Thought this might be interesting. So this is a little bit of market intel. It's publicly available. I'm not breaching any confidences, but this kind of gives you an idea of who's out there right now. And then I can also give you some indication of our market share. So for in school, Sallie Mae, you've probably all heard about Sallie Mae. Sallie Mae is the elephant in the room. They have a massive amount of market share, almost 50%, which is huge. There are some state agencies that are starting to chip away at that a little bit, but it is still a huge market share. We actually built their software and sold it to them, which is kind of an interesting fun fact, but we have a great relationship with Sallie Mae, and but we don't originate their loans for them today. And they continue to have a lot of market share because they have great products and because they have genius marketing and really good connections with schools. That's really what that comes down to. Then you have Discover and Citizens, big banks. Discover got into it by acquiring the city portfolio and the city people, importantly, that were very, very good and could kind of help them break in. That was probably about 15 years ago now. So Discover is a big player. Citizens is a big player, and we don't originate for either of those banks. Who we do originate for is everybody else. So that credit union student choice portfolio you see there, PNC, Bank of North Dakota, and a lot of that other 9% all comes through CampusDoor software every year, which is pretty exciting for us. On the refinance side, SoFi still has the lion's share of everything there. SoFi offers, it's a loss leader for them as we understand it, but they offer a lot of benefits that make that intriguing for people. They really got in on kind of digital first, digital only early on, and have just designed a really incredible user experience for people. So they get a lot of volume there. I guess they need it to continue to pay for their stadium naming rights, but they do a lot of volume. Citizens does a lot of volume. Laurel Road does some volume. PenFed, we originate PenFeds. They do substantial volume. Common Bond is actually, they're not in the space anymore. They actually just decided to exit. There's some pressure related to the fact that there's just not very much refi volume lately because of the federal loans being in deferment. People don't need to refinance right now when they're not making payments. And then we have a few other players. So that's just kind of fun fact. That's what the student loan landscape looks like right now. We're always looking to expand our market share, but we do try to do it kind of subtly and quietly. But we have a pretty sizable chunk right now, which makes us pretty happy. So what's going to happen with student loans next? This is where I make some guesses. And then you can, next time I pop by for a lunch, you can tell me whether I was right or wrong. Okay, so industry buzz. Isn't college going to be free soon? I get that question all the time. And it's true. Hopefully, at least some of college will be free at some point in the future. There is a lot of talk about community college, about public school, like about different elements of college maybe being subsidized a little bit more generously. And, you know, in our minds, it's possible that at some point, some of it is going to be free. But most of our lenders don't, for community colleges especially, a lot of our lenders don't feel right about lending in those spaces when there are other ways that could be paid for. A lot of our lenders, good partners for us, are partners who are really responsible about it, and who kind of market very appropriately, and who are not going after students that don't understand the ROI, or students who are going to a school that maybe a 2-year school that they should really not be borrowing for. So for us, that won't impact us very much, but it is something that could potentially happen. And I would say the most common question that we're getting these days is, well, isn't it all going to be forgiven? So important to remember that big old pie chart that was on that one slide. There's not a ton of understanding generally about the differences sometimes. I mean, our students who are in the room right now probably completely get it, but sometimes there's not a lot of understanding about the federal loans versus the private loans. And often when people ask us about forgiveness and isn't it all going to be forgiven, and are you guys going to be out of business, and questions like that, it's because they don't necessarily understand that the private is separate. There's zero talk of private loan forgiveness. There is talk of federal loan forgiveness. Now, if I had to guess, I would say that it'll be targeted. So there's been a lot of federal loan forgiveness in the last year, school by school, schools that had bad value propositions and were predatory to students. Those loans have appropriately been forgiven. And we think that will continue. Choose a school, kind of investigate it, see if those loans should be forgiven, and do it school by school. That'll continue to happen for sure. But we also think that there's the possibility for some, pick an amount across the board forgiveness that the Biden administration continues to look into. That could happen. What it sounds like it'll be is something that's kind of small, $10,000 or $15,000, and that will be targeted toward households that are making less than X amount of income a year. Also, it's not a disaster for us. There's ways where that will actually morph into market conditions that benefit us. But that could be really good for students. The majority of students or former students who have federal loans that are in default right now, they owe less than $10,000, and they're certainly not hitting those income thresholds. So that type of targeted forgiveness could be a way to help the students, graduates that really need it without actually disrupting everything. So that's a possibility as well. And then, don't these loans perform poorly? We get that from banks and credit unions a lot. Oh, I hear about this huge student loan default problem. I hear that 40% of all student loans are in default. Why would I get into this asset class? Well, private student loans actually perform incredibly well, actually even better from credit unions than banks, because people have such relationships with their credit unions, they don't want to disappoint them. There's a very interesting psychological thing that happens there. But private student loans actually perform incredibly well. Cohort default rates are less than 2% most of the time. There are times where that ticks up a little bit. They always repay. They repay great. They're a good bet. They're responsibly underwritten, and you're empowering a student to go to school, and you're trusting that student's going to repay it. So private student loans do great. Federal student loans never really get written off the books because the books really are taxpayer books. So the reason that default rate continues to climb is because nothing ever really comes off. So as there are new defaults, that's why you hear that number. I mean, a couple of years ago, people were saying, oh, 25% of them are in default. Now people are saying 40% of them, but it's because it can't go anywhere but up based on the way that they do the accounting. So those are the questions that we get most frequently about what's going to happen and some misconceptions about student loans. And then to kind of take this and say, what's in store for CampusDoor? So that's the industry. What's in store for us? Well, we'll navigate all this stuff just fine, like we always do. We've been through a number of economic cycles, but beyond just what are the current economic conditions going to do to CampusDoor? What do we plan to do? Well, we are really excited to start to launch some new origination products. So our software does student loans really, really well. Why stop there? We're excited to branch into some different asset classes. And I can tell you, after 15 years of being buried in student loan guidelines, it's really exciting for me to get to read some new docs too. So we're branching into other things. We're focusing on HELOC right now, which is really exciting for us. So I think it's likely that we're exploring it right now. We try to do all of that stuff very scientifically, but I think it's likely that we'll be coming to market with some other origination products soon. We'll have to think about whether we still call ourselves CampusDoor or whether we do something else. CampusDoor makes some sense for students, might not make as much sense for other things. So we're thinking about that too. So you could see some branding changes out of us in the future. And then just continuing to grow our technical team. That's also something that we plan to do. We think that we can do some really cool stuff. We have a really, really great foundation, incredible people. Why not grow on what's already good about CampusDoor? I think do we have a minute, a couple minutes for some questions? Great. Absolutely. So the question was about, I have a nice little repeat the question thing. The question was about client diligence. How do we avoid lenders, schools, other potential partner organizations that have predatory practices? And I can tell you, we have a very robust diligence policy. We originated loans for CCI for Corinthian College years and years ago. It hurt us, as we were reading about what was happening to these students, it impacted us. I mean, not financially, but kind of just based on our wanting to do good. We decided that we would write some policies around how we perform diligence on clients. And that has changed completely over the last couple of years, especially. So when we have a potential partner that approaches us, we do some research on them. We do a lot of research on their founders, on the partners that are involved. What are their history as individuals? And do we feel good about that? Have they been caught up in other things that haven't been above board? We do significant financial diligence. We write that into our contracts now to kind of make sure that we understand where money's coming from, how money's being handled, and are they sound? And then ethically, do we feel like they're sound the way that their financials are working? Like, are they audited financials, for example? So we do that. And then we convene as a risk committee at CampusDoor. So I'm not unilaterally making those decisions. Billy's not unilaterally making those decisions about who we're partnering with. We actually come together with a number of individuals from throughout our organization, and we present the potential deal. We talk about the partners. We determine whether there are any other things that we want to investigate, and we have a scoring process. So we take it very seriously. We've written those policies. We did it on purpose. I mean, we could have written them like a little softer and maybe not had to stick with them, but we wrote them actually into our procedural documentation so that we audit ourselves against it, and our SOC auditors audit us on it too, to make sure that we're doing that the way that we committed that we would do it. We have turned away partners, especially recently. We've had some opportunities for-profit school. We work with some for-profit schools that we think are completely above board, but some for-profit schools we've turned away recently. And then some other like fintech organizations that maybe would have been lucrative for us, but we just didn't feel good about it. Yes. Yeah, so the question was, have we ever thought about working with employers on a portal for employers who want to help students pay off loans? We have not, but there are organizations who do that. So in our space, I'm trying to think, I think I know of 2 or 3, I think the third might not do it anymore, but there are organizations, fintech organizations, and organizations who kind of like look like us a little bit, who have built software to do that. We would have been late to the game by the time we thought we might explore it, but there are some pretty established technical vehicles for exactly what you're describing. And if it's something that you're interested in, I'd be happy to give you some names.
What extent have you been able to protect your technology through system patents or other IP means?
So the question was, to what extent have we been able to protect our technology through patents or other ways of protecting IP? We've been burned a few times. There's a lot out there that looks like ours, and a lot of those people worked with us first. Patents, no, we've explored that and we haven't been able to do that. What we do, and there's some of what we do that's very specialized where we might have some luck. There are other things that we do that just so many other people do it, and it's an online application that we haven't had much luck. We do protect our IP with some contractual provisions. So when we're working with somebody, especially if we think that it's somebody who's going to go ahead and build themselves after they work with us for a little while and learn everything about what we do, we kind of do that contractually. We have had to execute some of our contractual rights regarding our IP in the past. We do it carefully. We take it. Our industry is a small one, and we kind of don't want to burn bridges when we don't absolutely have to, because what goes around comes around. So we have in the past had to kind of pursue some loss, or what we felt were losses because of what people have done with our IP.
I think that was the last question.
Okay.
Sarah, thank you so much for a really fascinating presentation. As you said at the beginning, there's probably not anybody in the room that doesn't have some level of experience, personal or professional, with this issue, and yet the layers of complexity. I certainly learned new things today, and I've been in higher education for years. So thank you for that. And thank you for moving your operation to York. You chose wisely, and we're delighted to have you here. In honor of Sarah's presence today, she has graciously signed the book plate for the book, The Bad Seed, which I assume is a biography of Kevin. I told you you'd get paid back. And that book by Jory John will be donated to the Alexander D. Good Elementary School. Next week, we will hear from Tavon Parker, from college dropout, felon, and failed businessman to now helping youth and inspiring others to change the narrative through his motivational messages and mentorship. It will be a fascinating program that you will not want to miss. Our final word for the day, drum roll please. Our imagine quote, can you imagine what I would do if I could do all I can? From Jeff Rich, an American explorer, and that was submitted to us by Alan Roth, whose birthday I believe it is today. Is that correct, Alan? Happy birthday, friend. Happy birthday. Yeah. That concludes our meeting today. Thank you. We are adjourned.